In June 1942, a hotel in New York City checked in a dozen men who had traveled from Florida on business. The nation was at war, and the area around the Empire State was filled with plants manufacturing war materials. There were military bases and media outlets. No one suspected these men had been trained in Germany for a mission to destroy those very sites. Landing from a Nazi submarine on a Florida beach with explosives and cash, the 8 men moved towards their targets. The plan was to blow up factories, bridges, and water supplies. They were highly trained, fitted perfectly into American life, and committed to the Nazi cause. The American war machine would be decimated by their sabotage. Hi, I'm Larry Payne, your host of Tracks for the Journey. I'm dedicated to building your spiritual, emotional, and relational well-being, and thanks for listening today. Sabotage. It's an act of war, and I'm glad you're listening today because someone may be sabotaging your progress towards a fulfilling life. Who is it? Well, if you'll turn towards the mirror, you'll see the culprit. That's right. You're the greatest danger to your own well-being, and I'm in the same place. And I think it's vital that we learn how to avoid the twin saboteurs of fearing our fears and making our emotions into facts. A story from the Apostle Paul gives some insight. He had been arrested, flogged, and placed in a filthy prison in the city of Philippi. The ancient legal system had few safeguards for legal rights or prisoner safety. He and his partner Silas were in a situation of dire threat, facing months of mistreatment, deprivation, and anxiety. But we find them reacting in a different way. They began to pray, to sing, and to care for the other prisoners in a remarkable response to this life-threatening situation. Fear is a natural emotion that enables us to survive, and it's important to have a healthy fear of falling, poisonous reptiles, and angry people. Falling might mean a broken wrist, a snake bite serious injury, and an angry person a punch in the nose. Fear is a protective emotion that should only be disregarded with careful thoughts and precautions. But sometimes fear can get out of hand. The emotion can be an overreaction to a response of something that isn't dangerous. For example, a man who was mugged at a filling station might decide to have a gun in his hand when he needs a tank of gas. Or a transgender woman hearing stories of hate might never apply makeup and keep her hair short to minimize being noticed in a public space. Realistically, there is no threat in those situations, but the sense of fear is present. And when we're fearful, but there's no threat, we could say we are fearing our fears. This will sabotage our quality of life. We can move beyond this cycle of fear through awareness of what is happening. The clue is the heightened arousal of fear marked by surging heart rate, shallow breath, and tense muscles. Being triggered with fear in a situation that's normal means it's time to seek a change. How can we do that? Instead of cocking the gun while pumping gas, we can slow our breathing, pause our movements, and think slowly about the context of the moment. Those responses give us much more time to act realistically, leading to a cascade of better outcomes. A second saboteur is confusing the emotion of the moment with the facts of the situation. Consider Jasmine, a young woman who had started avoiding meeting her coworkers after work for a social hour. Being in the unstructured social situation provoked a pounding heart and desire to bolt for the door. It reminded her of being groped by a guy who backed her around a corner at a party a couple of years before. After talking with a counselor, she learned to prepare by assessing the situation for realistic threats, giving herself breaks to sit and breathe, and attending with a trusted girlfriend. She moved beyond fearing her fear to enjoy the banter of the party. Jasmine displayed a key element that halts sabotage. She refused to confuse her feeling with facts. Her fear at the party was an emotion rooted in the past, but not based on the facts of the present situation. She knew her current office mates were decent men and women who had not violated any boundaries. That was the fact. and a small chance existed one of them could have had too much to drink and act like a jerk, but the real fact was this was highly unlikely. She was choosing to pay attention to the facts of the present more than the feelings of the past. And among the Nazi saboteurs of 1942 was George Dash, an American who had gone to Germany before the war. And after months of secret training, he was in place to do that work in America. But he didn't feel right. After weeks of inner turmoil, he faced the truth. He had no real interest in staying a Nazi and being a murderer. He wanted to live in America with his wife and enjoy the freedom it would give. Soon after the team arrived in New York, he made a daring escape from the group, fleeing to Washington. He called the FBI and spilled out the elements of the plots. The agents acted swiftly and arrested more than a dozen men. The plot was dismantled by the courage of one man. I invite you to take a moment to look in the mirror once again. You can see there a person who can avoid sabotaging a sense of well-being and healthy adjustment. By facing the fears and holding on to the facts, you can turn emotional life towards the good. You might even start singing to yourself in a sense of freedom. Thanks for listening today. Thanks for sharing this episode on the Tracks for the Journey Network. Please rate and review the episode on your provider to spread the message of well-being. The hub of the Tracks for the Journey Network is the website, tracksforthejourney.com. From there you can subscribe to the Tracks Express newsletter, find links to listen or watch dozens of episodes on a huge variety of subjects, and make a donation to support the work. I welcome you to join the Trackers Facebook community for discussions. I also invite you to share your thoughts by emailing me at the address connecttfj@yahoo.com. Tracks for the Journey is produced at the Bright Star Studio, all rights reserved. Hosting is by buzzsprout.com. Music and images are from pixabay.com. Keep exploring on your journey to well-being.